Hello and welcome to another episode of Seddon and Laceys Comic Stash. And we're doing another news episode.
Yeah, getting into that news.
But, as ever,
Oh, and also, let's not forget, not only are we doing news, but we're going into the future. And we're going to be looking at the February 2023 solicits to see what's floating our boat. And of course, February's Valentine's Day as well. So if we stick out enough hints on here, if you want to get us a Valentine's gift, I don't know how I'm going to rinse that through in March. I don't know what's giftable in March, but yeah. So,
Easter.
so yeah, we'll be telling you what we're looking forward to in February. Oh
Yes.
yeah, Easter with an egg as well. Obviously, I'm not just taking a comic book. I want an egg as well.
But as always, we will start with going to our corners of reading joy and misery and all the other things that we infiltrate
The
into what
whole
we read.
gamut of emotions.
Play that funky tune.
I've just realised, by the way, there is a corner behind me, and I don't read in that corner because you might see there's a load of Funko Pops and shells and shit. I'd be really cramped. That would be a terrible reading experience.
And I too have a corner behind me. I
Is that
could
where you
sit
read?
there, but it's a bit drafty because that's where the window patio door things are. So it might get cold.
You might get some sort of like repetitive strained neck injury from sitting there. And years later, when you and I are in an old people's home together and you can barely move, I can tell everyone, oh yeah, it was comic books that did it to him. Absolutely ruined him.
Not the crowd surfing, breaking most back
No,
and neck.
no,
No,
that
comic.
bears in comparison to reading comics in a drafty corner. We divert as ever. What have you been reading in your reading corner?
So I've only been reading one thing, which I won't go into too much detail with because it will be an upcoming show. But I
Is
have
it
been
what I
reading
think it is?
old school 80s Suicide Squad. But that is all. I'm not going into any details because we will cover that very soon.
And potentially, when we cover it very soon, although we will be covering old school Suicide Squad from the 80s, Suicide Squad movies, a DOS movos, it is one of the eras of DC that I've read bits and bobs from that I'm really kind of enamored with. And one of the beautiful things about DC Universe Infinite has actually allowed me to start to go into that era again because there's some great stuff from around there, like kind of the post Crisis on Infinite Earths era that I just wasn't reading at the time or didn't have access to DC. So, yet again, DC Universe Infinite sponsors you buggers because we use you and we love you, except for when you're searching into crap and then we hate you.
Even with the terrible search engine, I still find my love of DC there.
Yeah, and you know, like not to go from our other bow, which is Marvel Unlimited, which is where I was for my part of reading corner. One that I'm going to skip over relatively quickly, but because I do want to do something with it later. I read the second trade of Immortal Hulk, so that's issues 6 to 10, and I know I said before when we did it on here how much I enjoyed the first trade. The second trade is as good, if not better. This, if it continues the quality it is, I could see this being one of those things that goes on my list of comic book masterpieces when I get to the end of the run. But
Mm.
I I don't know what yet, but I kind of plan on coming back to that. Maybe either getting you to read it or doing something with it later. But because I was reading that, and I must admit, I didn't even know this existed. But as I was going through the issues of Marvel Unlimited, it then said to me, "Oh, next up, you want to read Immortal Hulk Best Defense." And I thought, "Oh, what's this?" And it's I'd say like a 5 issue, but 5 single issues or single stories under this Best Defense banner, and it's Immortal Hulk, Doctor Strange, Name of the Submariner, and Silver Surfer, and then the Defenders Best Defense. So all of those characters were the original cast of the Defenders comic that Marvel did, and this is obviously something that they put together to kind of celebrate the Defenders and bring them back for a story.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it for kind of like a one-off event. And I say event, it's a very mini event, but so Immortal Hulk, it's written by the Immortal Hulk team. So something I'm saying I already love. I get the same creative team. Doctor Strange, excellent story, excellent art. Really enjoyed the Silver Surfer story. The Name of the Submariner one was the weakest of the lot, but all of them, I would say, have individual stories. So,
Hmm.
for example, in the Immortal Hulk, it starts off and he finds Doctor Strange's skeletal body dead, just a skeleton there. And then you kind of follow him in his issue. Then when you jump to Namor, he's actually looking to try and unite some long lost tribes of Atlantis because I believe at the time he was in the Avengers book trying to take over the surface world. But there's not a great deal of linkage between that and Immortal Hulk. Then when you come to Doctor Strange, you see why Doctor Strange is dead
Yeah.
and you see why the Hulk finds him. And then in the Silver Surfer, you pick up one of the plot threads from Namor. And then when it comes to the final issue, the Defenders one, which is written by Al Ewing, who writes Immortal Hulk, he pulls all four of those stories together to have the Defenders do something. But yeah, for something I didn't even know existed and was a bit of a whim on Marvel Unlimited. Yeah, really
Yeah.
enjoyed it. I don't think I'm pretty sure no Defenders comic come off the back of it. I think it was just a boom, we're going to do it. But yeah, really good. Like if you ever fancy just a kind of 5 issue chunk, and I guess when it was released, which would have been I should have looked this up maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it gives you a bit of an eye into the world of what's going on in the Hulk's world at the time and Silver Surfers and things like that. So it's a nice
Yeah.
little jump in point for it. But yeah, really, really good stuff.
Nice. I should mention I have gone and seen the Black Panther. I took the boy. I don't know if we'll do a full show on it, but I will just say it's all right. It's about an hour or so too long. Yeah.
I think we probably will do because we tend to. I will say I'm not in a rush to go to the cinema to watch it. I loved Black Panther. I liked the trailers for this, and it's no offense to this as a product. I'm just not in a cinema going mood at the moment. And because I'm not in a cinema going mood, it may be when it drops on streaming for me on this. So if we
Yeah.
do a show, it might be down the line. But yeah, but if I do all of a sudden get the hankering for the cinema, this probably would be the film I go and see. So maybe sooner rather than later. But yeah, certainly something that I intend to watch. Yeah, I'm not into cinema visits at the moment.
Yeah, it was just one of those. I had the boy for the weekend. The weather was shite, and it was like, "Do you want to go to the cinema?" Yeah, what do you want to see? It was like, "Yeah, Black Adam or Black Panther," and he wanted Black Panther. So
I kind of hope he's made the right choice. Certainly, comparatively with how I feel about the cinematic universes of the two, and even if I compare the trailers to each other, it would have been Wakanda Forever for me out of the two of them.
yes.
Wakanda Forever.
So shall
Who
we go
knows
into
what this
the
means?
news?
Oh yes, let's news it up.
So
Jump.
first up,
I was
oh
gonna
yeah,
say jumping off of what we were saying earlier. I guess about kind of DC and their events and their love of rebooting universes. It was a relatively, I guess, chunky bit of news from DC, wasn't there, about their Dawn of DC initiative?
yes.
Um,
So they have announced that this year or next year's even year-long line-wide Uber story is going to be the Dawn of DC. It's coming out of the Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths and the Lazarus Pit planet and every other
more to
Lazarus
come on that later
bit.
in the show, I promise you.
So this will be starting in January next year. So far, we have been told that they will be including Superboy, the Man of Tomorrow, Doom Patrol, Green Lantern, both Hal Jordan and John Stewart, the Brave and Bold Batman, Green Arrow, Cyborg, Shazam, Steelworks, and the Penguin. Um, Obviously, I've not read any of Dark Crisis, so I have no idea what we're
I,
coming from to go into.
I read the free comic book day sort of teaser of it, and that's as
Yeah.
far as I've got so far. But because it will release on DC Universe, I may tap into it before we get to this. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm not au fait with what Dark Crisis is trying to do or has done up until now.
So yeah, Jim Lee, the chief creative officer of DC, has said that with a brand new series and story arcs for some of the top creative members in the comics, Dawn of DC is one of the most ambitious and inventive innovations ever, and will be a chance for us to tell bigger, bolder stories across our lines. I'm pretty sure that's standard fodder. That line there.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that really intrigues me about it as a news story is, I mean, I saw the headline "Dawn of DC" and I thought, oh, here we go again, another line-wide reboot. It doesn't read like that though, does it? It
No,
does read a little bit more like we'll get a lot of new number ones, new creative teams, and um, but but not kind of
it's not New Fifty
new
Two. Here we go
origins,
again.
etc. Yeah, and I mean, I quite liked the new 52. I do understand why long-term DC readers, because I'd have felt the same if they'd done it with Marvel, might have been a bit miffed of almost blanket being told a load of those stories you liked aren't there anymore, but we won't really go into why. Um, but I didn't want another one because I think since that new 52, they have had a number of soft reboots. And yeah, this one, as I say, this one jumped out because this one feels like it is not going to be that. However, I always like to temper that when it's DC of going. Quite often, DC don't tell you it's that
But
until it's that.
until they've
Yeah.
started it, and it's
Well, I mean, with the new 52, they were releasing Flashpoint, and Flashpoint was supposed to kind of, it had hinted that something would come after it, but it was supposed
yeah,
to be, oh, here's a story. And then all of a sudden it was like, ta da, we're rebooting the whole line. And even things like Dark Crisis of the Infinite Earths was publicized as Dark Crisis. It's not an Infinite Earth series. And then as it got to release, they went, psst, it's a Dark Crisis on Infinite Earth series. So,
yeah,
so yeah, there might be more to come from this. But um, I think looking for jumping in spots is often quite difficult, isn't it? We've talked about this before about how do you get new readers in or how do you pull it in. And like I said earlier, going through DC, there's a lot of creators that I'm quite interested in that I've started to pick up some of the runs they're doing. But more often than not, I find myself going back to old school stuff. This might be the thing that pulls me into becoming more current on my DC reading.
yeah. The thing with these sort of things though that does put me off slightly is when they say it's over 20 lines, and you're just like, I obviously when we go in solicits and stuff later on, like obviously they're getting to the arse end of the Lazarus Pit bits from Dark Crisis, and there was about 7 different Lazarus only
Yeah,
runs.
when I said I've got quite a lot from the solicits, a lot of them might have the term Lazarus involved. Yeah,
But yeah, so as I said, it's one of those of it's yes, it's a good sort of here you go start point, but if it gets to the point where everyone's in everyone's stuff and you need to buy 15 different issues a week to know what's going on,
yeah.
it does get a little bit silly at those points.
But again, I think because of services such as DC Universe Infinite, we're paying that standard price, aren't we?
Yeah,
And it becomes more attainable. But of course, time is the enemy at that point, and wanting to read other things. But I mean, even from what they've announced so far, like the Penguin series. I mean, I don't know whether I think or knew whether I wanted a Penguin series, but you tell me it's Tom King writing it, and I'm like, yeah, I want a Penguin series, thank you very much.
yeah,
And like Shazam, the creative team on that, Mark Wade, a writer I really like, but even more so Dan Mora, who's an artist who over the last year or so kind of come onto my radar, and I love his art. And I think it gives you a chance to maybe go, there's a character I either don't know anything about but I'm interested in, a creative team that I want to come along for, or a character I do know a lot about but haven't read anything of for a while. I could jump in here. But yeah, I don't necessarily see me getting reading everything that comes out of this. However, I think there's a lot that will intrigue me enough to do a bit more of a
Dabble.
jumping
Yeah.
into DC now. Um,
And continuing with DC, they have suggested that their creators move from dirty Elon Musk and Twitter to the new Hive. So yeah, they've basically said to all their staff to create Hive accounts and
yeah,
use a hashtag Comic Twitter to get everyone to go on there. Hive is only as an app.
yeah.
These are things that I didn't know. I have no idea about Hive.
Well, I
But
didn't know about Hive until 2 days ago. And 2 days ago, I started to see on Twitter for a lot of the people from the like comic book fans and comic book Twitter saying, "So we're moving to Hive then." So I went, "Well, what's Hive?" It was pouring, it was rain. So I was trying to download it and I was getting soaked and I was trying to set up an account. But we will, and probably like on the next show, we will be going to Hive because it feels like the place where comic book fandom is going. And one of the things I've really enjoyed about Twitter, and we hear about the toxicity of it pre-Musk, is that the comic book fans on there tend to be pretty good. You know, like you just chat comics with them. It's grand. So yeah, we'll keep the Twitter presence, but we will be having a Hive account. But one of the things that made me really laugh about this is it's that DC Comics as a Hive handle has been stolen by someone called Marvel Studios.
yeah, I did
And I
see
just
that
thought,
and
yeah,
did have a
there,
chuckle.
there's your kind of one, great trolling, but two, probably someone going, they might give me a few quid to get that handle. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so we will have multiple social media identities, but yes, for the comic book fans out there, we will be having a Hive presence.
So one that I saw that flagged my interest, and for a little bit at least, some metal comics are coming. So some one shots from Opus next year, and then my interest did wane when I saw the three bands that they are.
You
My
went to a
Bloody
half
Valentine,
chub at that point.
My Bloody Valentine, Evanescence, and Hammerfall, all getting comic runs in the new
I,
year.
I'd actually forgotten when you mentioned this story. I'd actually forgotten that I did see the Evanescence one, and I just went, "Oh God!"
See, out of all of them, the one that might be interesting would be Hammerfall, because they are a, a power metal band that do a lot of D&D inspired lyrics and sort of fantasy stuff. So if they're going off their lyrical content of what they
Yeah.
sing about, you could do something fun with that. But yeah,
So is it
no,
just them writing? So is it the bands coming together, kind of writing a story and it being released, or is
um,
it
it,
about them as a band?
it doesn't have, because I've looked at the names on them, and it isn't the band, or if unless they're new members of bands, that I don't think anything to do with the
Oh,
actual band themselves. It's just around and created about a story about the band
okay.
in the Evanescence one and in the Hammerfall one as well. I can see that they don't have the band on them. I don't know the members of My Bloody Valentine, so they might be one of them. But yeah, so they are all coming out on Opus. I'm hoping that they pick up some more interesting bands, and at some point we
Well,
do get the full Ghost lore
well, I guess
in comic form.
there's some truth in that, isn't there? Of going, if these sell well, they're likely to probably try and do something with more bands. You know, like so
Yeah,
there might be those horrible things of going. People might, if they want more like this, they might need to speculate on things that they're not massively interested in initially to try and keep that initiative going.
yeah. Obviously, going back to my grail of whenever they'll come out in English and I can get them, the bat metal
Yeah.
crossovers where we've got a ghost one. There's Sepultura, Ozzy Osbourne, stuff like that. So I know DC have done stuff with bands in
Yeah,
that bat metal stuff. But yeah, if I could get a Ghost Law comic series, yes, please.
it does seem right
Take
for
my
it, doesn't
money.
it? It does seem like it would. I mean, we've said it on uh, shameless plug for our music reactions. We've said it on Ghost ones before, haven't we? Of
Yeah.
they've built up like a sufficient amount of lore, and oft it feels like it nods to comic books and horror as well, obviously. But yeah, it does feel like there's a story waiting to be told there with the right creative team.
Oh, and yes, that would definitely be a shut up and take my money moment. Um, we have a new director for the reboot of Blade.
I very much picked this one out as well because I know you love your Blade,
I
and I thought
do.
when I see a Blade story, I'm grabbing it.
So Jan Damage is now the new director after it having the last director leave in September.
Yeah.
This has had lots of turmoil. This reboot,
Yeah,
and
I mean, I'm kind of hoping, regardless of the director, that it sticks a bit because obviously it has, as you say, there's been quite a lot of turmoil, and it's pushing it back and back and back, isn't it? Because
well, they've
you
now
know,
said it's got to come out in 2024 because
yeah,
that's the latest it can come out to fit in the time of
their release schedule and all
everything
that
else
jazz.
that
Yeah, yeah,
it needs to fit into. Because I was gonna say I wasn't sure how much into the Phase 4 timeline everything must connect part will be in at this point, but clearly Blade is part of that. Thus, they want it out at the latest by
yeah,
2024,
yeah.
which doesn't give them a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember what the tent pole end of phase four is, but I'm guessing whatever it is, it's planned for around December 2024. So we're going to have to get this through and out before then.
Yes. Oh, isn't it Thunderbolts? Isn't that the big
It
end
could well
one?
be. It's been a while since I've looked at the, like when they do the graphic
Yeah,
of like the plan.
everything.
Yeah,
But yeah, it is good to see that they might have finally. I mean, this at this point and this late in the game, I don't think they're changing director again unless something tragical happens. But I mean, he's now doing it.
I wonder whether Mahershala Ali, who's going to be Blade, and I say he's going to be Blade, I'm going to say open your mind a bit wide on that because they cast him, and it's been through about 8 billion directors and writers since then, hasn't it? So I wonder whether
Yep.
he sits there ever going, wonder if this film will ever be made. Uh,
And
yeah, the director's not someone I'm massively au fait with. I know he directed the first episode of Lovecraft Country, which I did watch the first episode of that, and it seemed fine. And he did White Boy Rick, which I've never got round to watching. But yeah, it wasn't a name that when I saw it, I kind of went, "Oh, brilliant!" But more because of my lack of exposure, more than having any anti feeling to it. But yeah, as I say, I can't pass up Blade news when you're around. And also, I think if anything, as I said, let's hope this sticks so that they can actually move forward with the project because I liked Blade movies. Now I'm ready and happy to see another one. So yeah, let's get it made, people.
yeah, that original trilogy are just great. Even with Triple H being a small dog carrying
Yes.
vampire.
I think it suited him. I think he should have carried that back into his WWE character.
And last in the news, the Penguin is to get his own HBO spin-off series. So Colin Farrell will be back as the Penguin for a TV spin-off taking place after the events of the first film and
And that was one
before
of
the
the big
events of
things,
the
wasn't it?
second film.
Yeah, they were very much kind of like announcing this is where it's going to take place. So it's not a prequel, it is going to be in between. And that's what really stood out for me because I thought I like that more because I must admit, I'm a bit sick of prequels.
Yeah,
Let's follow some stories on. But it was kind of that nice concept of going, okay, if this is a bridge piece, then yeah, I'm probably more up for it than I initially was when I even heard that there was going to be such a thing. And that's no offense to Colin Farrell. I thought he was great in the Batman as Penguin, but no, it feels a lot more ensconced now in that
Yeah,
Batman story that
and
I liked.
if you think in the Batman, he pretty much has his origin because he starts as an underboss to then taking over and
Yeah,
having the Iceberg Lounge and being, running lots of the crime syndicates and families. So it makes sense for this to carry on. So we see what Oswald gets up to now that he has the power
yeah.
that he accumulated during the film.
Well, one of the things that I thought was quite decent as well is the showrunner was saying that you'll see a visually different take on the story because the Penguin plays at different times than Batman
Yeah.
and doesn't experience the world the same as Batman. I did wonder though, does that mean less rain?
I'm hoping less rain and more daylight
Yeah.
and melty ice.
You could almost have like a large part of daylight, and then when you want that cut away from daylight to darkness, that's when you're going to go into a dingy club or
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm optimistic about this. I quite like the idea of it. Fingers crossed for it as well. So
Yeah, it's one of those of I like the idea, I like the concept, and hopefully it doesn't have bats in it because I would like to see it be more of a
yeah,
crime show. So think like Sopranos or something like that, where it's
yeah.
the shit that he gets
Well,
up to as a mob boss.
and to allow hopefully us to see some of those characters that will probably never make it to Batman movie level.
Yeah.
And I'll bang on about the ventriloquist and the Mad Hatter here as we do it every opportunity we get. But that sort of thing. I mean, even if they're just singular episodes, bit part players or things like that, but to allow us to see the dirty streets of Gotham and where your more hoodlum level ones play, because as much as we know Batman interacts with them in comic books, I think they're rarely going to get feature roles in a movie, are they? So
Yeah.
yeah, make us proud, HBO Max and the creators of this show.
As I said, after the joy of what they did with Peacemaker, I have time for HBO Max
Well,
with
again,
what they
teaser
do.
for an upcoming show. I might in the near future actually be able to start watching Peacemaker finally because I will finally get Suicide Squad watched.
So we will finish today with our view and gaze into the future, and we look at what is around the corner at the beginning of next year, and what stories have or runs have piqued our interest
Yeah,
in what is to come in February of
I mean,
next year.
it used to be a much bigger thing for me. So in my formative collecting years, I would much like a child at Christmas who's given the Argos catalogue and told by their parents, cut out what you want and you might get it, that sort of thing. I used to pour through Previews magazine, which was the written copy of all the solicits before the internet did all this sort of stuff. And as I say, in the past few years, because I haven't been generally collecting as things come out, I've done it less and less, but I kind of wanted to revisit that. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed going through the solicits. Because I think it led me away from, although the things that I've picked out might show a bit of a line here, it led me away from just going, oh, what's the next Avengers story or what's the next X-Men story and things like that. He says, as he knows there's a lot of X comics listed in here. But
So, as you have more than I
yeah,
will let you start.
apparently I do. Well, first publisher that I looked at that I focused on was Image Comics. Image Comics have my heart. We don't talk about them a lot because one, they don't have a lovely online service that we can utilize, and again, limited budget, limited time for all of us. But there was one in particular that is getting its first issue in February, and it's called Local Man #1. And I think I've mentioned it to you possibly around the Halloween time, a series called Revival, which was written by Tim Seeley about, well, let's say a horror comic, but it's actually him and another writer who had done something called Stray Dogs. And the thing that really stood out for me is it's a flip book. So half of it is about this superhero now and how his life has turned into, not brilliantly by the sounds of it. And then the other half is stories from him when he was a superhero. And I kind of liked the idea of in my singular issue getting two parts of the story, which I mean, you presume will ultimately culminate in becoming one seamless story at some point. But I
Yeah.
loved the idea of that. I thought flip book me up all the way, please.
um, so for me, there wasn't anything in the image lot that jumped out at me, other than the fact that there is the do a power bomb as a
It's on my list.
trade.
Yeah, yeah.
But I can't now. I've got. I mean, yeah, issue 6 came out this week. Um, there's only one more issue. I'm
As I
not
say,
gonna.
it's 7 issues, isn't
Yeah,
it? Yeah.
I'm not gonna then go rebuy it as a trade when I've got
Well,
all the singles now.
yeah, but for me, like a few of them that I've got highlighted along the way are trades, and very much so because like I missed the first and second issue when it came out, and I know I could get it digitally, but seeing that the trade is coming out in Feb, I just went, oh, do you know what? I'll just get the trade. It'd be nice to get it as one bit. I can stick it on the shelf. And but yeah, do a power bomb was a big one from Image for me. And there was also one called Monarch, which is a new series starting with a #1. Um, thing that really pulled me in for this is so horror science fiction seem to be leaning into, but it's set in the streets of Compton, and it's not an area that I tend to think of with my comic books. You know, very big
Mm,
from our rap world,
yeah.
but I quite like the idea of hitting into a story that leans into that. And I've not read it yet, but it's on my list. But it's by the writer of a series called Philadelphia, which won the Eisner Award a couple of years ago. So yeah, I was just like, yes, yes, please. This sounds like right up my alley. And there was another trade from Image that for a series that I hadn't heard of. So I've missed this along the way. And again, this is the problem with not doing the solicits, but it's called Golden Rage. And the first volume of the trade paperback comes out in February. But here's the screed for it. And tell me that you don't want to read this is older women have been deemed useless to society and abandoned a remote island where they must fight to the death whilst making friends. Welcome to Golden Range, a not too distant dystopia where Battle Royale meets the Golden Girls. Now,
I
I
can
love
see why
Battle
you love that.
Royale and I love the Golden Girls. So this is oh, I can't believe I didn't realize that this was a series. But my God, I'm glad a trade's coming. And there was one last trade from Image, and you'll hear this name a few times as we go through this. There's one called Love Everlasting, which is written by a not very well known fella called Tom King.
I did
Um,
see that one, and I was like,
yeah,
I was like, I'm gonna guess that you would probably sniff around
yeah.
that one, and then when you tell me it's good or not, I then
Well,
go and look at it. But
so weirdly enough, like obviously Tom King, it drew my attention. Then it had the artist, a lass called Elsa, and apologies for butchering the surname, but Charitier. Now I'd never heard of her except for a week ago. I randomly got recommended a YouTube video because she's got a YouTube channel, and I started to watch her YouTube channel, and I found her really interesting. And then, if that wasn't enough, it says the first volume of a thrilling epic in the tradition of Sandman and Saga, another series I love. So yeah, Image bringing for me a lot of trades for series that I hadn't. The sort of things that I think probably now that we're looking at solicits, I'll have picked them up as singles maybe. But god
yeah,
damn, they've got three epic trades coming out, or ones that I'm massively interested in.
yes. So we'll go to Marvel now because
Marvel Marvel, yeah,
I have some Marvels.
good.
So the first one of mine that intrigued me very much just because of the cover, because it looks freaky as fuck, was Red Goblin. So this is Normie Osborn
Normie.
taking over by a symbiote, and see where that goes. So this is obviously in issue 1. Yeah, that cover just grabbed me.
Uh,
So that
Funny enough, it was one that I skipped straight past. I just went. I'm so out of sort of Spidey lore at the moment and Goblin lore that I felt like I probably wouldn't have a chance of really understanding why
mm,
there's a
yeah.
red goblin, where it is, and things like that.
Yeah, as I said, it's not. I don't know. As you say, it's one of those I don't know who, why, what, where, and how. It's just like I just saw the pretty picture on the front and went, "Ooh," because that's how you get me.
Pretty well,
Pretty.
but that's one of the things of the solicits, isn't it? I mean, that's one of the things it's there for. You often, when you look at them, you get the cover, and you might get even some of the alternative covers, and sometimes you get a page from within. And we said this about going into a comic shop. A lot of when you go into a comic shop, it's does that cover grab you?
Yeah.
Now, also with this, they get to put a bit of sales patter in to say this issue will change the world. You've never seen anything like this and stuff like that. But quite often the thing that will draw you in is the cover.
Yeah, and that did that on the digital page of the
Yes.
website.
Most of my Marvel, I'll be honest, was things that I have somewhat started to read, way behind on, but somewhat started to read. So there's a swath of Star Wars, but then in my head, I'll only probably be sticking to the main series, Vader and Dr. Aphra. And I wrote down every ongoing X title because I am very slowly catching up on the X titles, and I imagine that I will stick with them. But one of the things that I was going to highlight from it. I really like Donny Cates, and I've massively enjoyed what I've read of everything he's done so far, and I'm working through the Venom run. But he'd recently taken over Hulk after the end of the Immortal Hulk. So I had put down on here issue 12 of the Hulk, really just to remind me I want to read that Hulk run at some point. But it shouldn't be on there anymore, because then I actually read a story yesterday that says he's not writing the Hulk anymore. So the penciler is actually going to be taken over.
Mm.
But but so yeah, it's kind of there. But no, the big one for me for Marvel was Miracle Man. And it's Miracle Man, the Silver Age, Neil Gaiman written.
So
Um,
I've had these perked out because Sarah loves Gaiman.
yeah.
Are these new or are these just reissues of something
So
from a while
some of it
ago?
will be old, and then it will be new. And I think at this stage we're in new. So Miracle Man is, and it, I think Marvel have either recently or are going to be releasing the collected editions of them, and hopefully onto Marvel Unlimited. But it's got a really potted history of who owns the rights to it, and it has been argued for years. However, Alan Moore, Marvel Man, stroke Miracle Man, depending on what day and who owns the rights,
Yeah.
is a masterpiece. And it is a masterpiece. And then after he'd finished, Neil Gaiman come on with Mark Buckingham, who's doing the art here, and started to do some issues. And then that's when rights issues, ownership started to kick in. And here we are, I want to say 40 years later, 30 years, bad maths, but this is them coming back to actually finish that story.
Okay, because this is the thing. Because obviously, I was scanning Gaiman stuff because I said the other half loves it, and obviously I saw all
Yeah.
the Sandman stuff, and I saw this Miracle Man. And I was like, "Is this new? Is this old? What's the story with it?"
I think you'd love it, but I think you'd love it if you read it before the Neil Gaiman stuff, because I think the Neil Gaiman stuff's good, and it is very good, but the Alan Moore stuff is amazing, and I think the gaming stuff is more interesting if you've read the Alan Moore stuff. But maybe something for a future show if we can get some collected editions of it, or if it goes on Marvel Unlimited.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't think you could. I don't think you could really read what happens with gaming, because I think contextually you need to know the Alan Moore side of it first.
Fair enough. So I have a couple of other bits.
Oh,
Oh, yes.
just very quickly. Well, sorry, one I did forget for Marvel, and I thought you would plonk
I've
this
got
on
some more
there.
Marvel ones.
Oh,
I've got
good,
another
good.
three
Sorry,
Marvels.
sorry. I'll shut up then and let you go. Marvels, Marvels.
So one is the Silver Surfer Ghostlight. That again, the cover just grabbed me on that. It is a new story arc for Silver Surfer. Um, Not a redo or anything like that, but it is showing as something about a female Silver Surfer. So obviously, I don't know. I've not been following it, so I don't know if that's canon now or what. But
I think I'm at least 5 years out of reading anything with Surfer in it, so I'm not sure.
yeah,
But I tend to love everything I read as Silver Surfer. He is one of my, I say, favorite characters. He's in that kind of top 350 favorite characters.
Another is a trade of Damage Control, the new employees handbook. This, for the team that it is, looks quite fun because it's She-Hulk. Oh, fuck, I
Moon
can't remember.
Knight,
Moon
Moon
Knight.
Knight, Ghost Rider,
Yeah,
Nightcrawler,
yeah,
Quicksilver.
yeah. I was like, that could be a quite fun ragtag bunch. Yeah, that looks like that could be quite interesting. And with it being a
I would say I've not read it, but I think from having a quick look at the cover, I think that all of those are going to have guest appearances, because Damage Control normally is about normal human beings having to clear up the stuff after superhero stuff. So
aha,
I imagine the dude in a shirt and tie, I reckon it's his story,
uh,
but those people will pop in and out as, I
yeah,
don't know, as Ghost Rider sets a building on fire with his face.
yeah,
Probably this dude has to come along and try and put out said
clear it
fire or
up.
fix it afterwards. Yeah.
And the last one on my list, which is probably the one that you were expecting me to pick, Bloodline, the daughter of
And
Blade.
no, no, but actually, now that you said it, yes, I do remember seeing that and thinking, oh yeah, you'll probably put that, but I'd forgotten about it, to be honest.
Yeah, this one, an interesting concept of Blade having a daughter who's now going into vampire hunting. I said this could go one of two ways, I think, with this one, depending on how it's written and the angle they go with it, on whether it's very much a young adult growing story, which, someone in their late 30s, probably not for them. They don't need that whole sort of, growing pains of what it's like to be a kid. So that might miss me on that, but if it's Blade, it's badass, and if she's just as badass,
I mean,
could be quite fun.
I didn't recognise the creative team at all, so I don't know whether they're kind of new or just people that I haven't. I must admit, I saw the name, I saw what it was, I saw that it was a limited series, and I must admit, I don't know why, but when we come to mainstream like DC and Marvel, I do often in my mind reject 5 issue limited series, because I kind of go, this is going to have no significance in the wider lore
So you
because they're
say
so
that,
easily written out.
but one of the greatest things that we've read this year was a limited series,
Huh?
Killing Time. That was only a six-run
Uh,
limited series that has
yes,
nothing to
I
do with
would
the
say that the rarity, not the norm, and written by one of their massive creative teams
fair.
who gets given like as many or as few issues as he wants to tell his stories. But that is not massively. But more so, I looked at the cover and went, "Fuck off! This ain't for me." God, I swore. Oh, I was trying to swear less than these things, but yeah, I went no. Yeah, I mean, like if you read it, I'll be interested. to know, but everything
It's one of
about
those. I
it
might. I
kind
may.
of stank of no thanks to me. But
It's one of those. If I'll pick up issue one, have a look, and then if it grabs me, I'll get the rest of them. If it doesn't, I don't.
yeah, yeah. And the one that I thought you put down on it, and admittedly, I could see why you wouldn't, because it is the 10th issue, and there was nothing necessarily significant about 10th issue, but I had made a note of it. It was Carnage. And the reason why I'd made a note of it is I didn't realise it was being written by Ram V, who I've recently been reading his Swamp Thing, and it is bloody brilliant. So now that I know that he writes a Carnage series at Marvel, that is going on my reading list on Marvel Unlimited, because I'm not a huge Carnage fan in general.
Mm.
But I think with the right creative team and with a writer that I love, then yeah, that's being added on. But yes, I thought you, as you were scrolling down, I thought you'd see a Carnage cover and go, "Stopping here, we're never
I, I,
moving on."
I think it was one of those because it was number 10. Because obviously I
Yeah,
saw all
yeah,
the Star Wars stuff, and I was like, oh, Star Wars is continuing. Oh, Doctor Apt is continuing. I was looking at them for either trades or issue ones of stuff. I wasn't going, oh, these are
yeah,
already
yeah.
in.
And as I say, to the most part, I put loads of like the ongoing stuff, but in general, I only really picked out ones that were partway through the run. If it was something where I realised, or it was the first time I realised the creative team was on there, where there's some sort of change. But yeah, I
Yeah,
like you. I did exactly the same. I kind of went, well, if I'm generally probably going to read it anyway, and it's 30 issues in, unless there was something significant about that issue that I thought might be interesting for people to jump onto, then yeah, it's a tougher sell when they're way down the line on that.
so now to DC.
A
Um,
distinguished competition.
very, very small amount for me. Only the two jumped out to me on here.
Ooh,
Um,
not enough Blade comics at DC. That's the problem.
because I said I went through a lot of them, and there were lots of things that I'm already reading the run, or have started looking at that run, but am like needing to get the
Yeah,
groundwork beforehand.
yeah.
Because like there's the new Harley Quinn stuff that's after season 3 of the animated show,
Do you know what? I
which
didn't
I
even.
haven't
I just
finished watching yet.
subconsciously probably saw them and just went straight past them. I didn't even acknowledge that you'd want them. I just went right, flick down. I don't need to read that.
But yeah, no, so I think it's like there's things like that are in there. Obviously, your standard Batman and Detective Comics and all the usual to dos. One is a trade, which is Batman: The Doom That Came to Gotham,
Oh,
which intrigued me by the name because I was like, it sounds like the tiger that came for tea. Um,
nice. I thought of that.
it's a 3-part story that's now as a trade. Um, 19 set in 1929, so old school gothic turn of the century Batman, which I do like. Some of those sort of ones when they're done properly, like Gotham by Gaslight. I
Yes.
really like that because they do the time frame well with it. So yeah, I will look out for that if it turns up in
And
abstract. And
the writer as well is Mike Mignola, who writes Hellboy and created the
aha,
whole Hellboy universe and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know why. And again, maybe this is the dark side of solicits. Is sometimes you see so many you don't notice that, and I must admit I didn't notice that on my way through. But now that you said it, that will kind of go down on my list of things for me to probably um, pick up or read on DC Universe. And when I say Mike Mignola and you say Gotham by Gaslight, by Gaslight is Mike Mignola. So I think it's going to be very much
yes,
in
I'm
exactly that vein.
I'm
So
liking that then.
yeah.
And the other one was a starting point for something that we keep telling ourselves that we will do at some point, but it's a
Hmm?
new number one, so we might it could be a place to look at. Superman. There is a new Superman number
Yes.
one.
There is a new Superman number one, and weirdly enough, even though it's a new number one, it's something we said we were going to do. I still skipped past it because I went, blah, Superman. I'm just going to quickly scroll back to it because I'm not entirely sure I even remember who the creative team was, which is a big influence on me. So quite
Yeah.
possibly, if it has interesting creative team. It might be something that we could do. So Joshua Williamson, someone who I've not read a lot of, but is on my list of creators to start reading stuff of because I hear very good things about his DC
Yeah.
work. So yeah, quite possibly, and of course, it will be a Dawn of DC
Yes. So this is the thing is,
kind of
so
issue.
this is roughly where the spin-offs are going to start into the Dawn of DC realm. So I'm not sure if it's going to be Clark Kent or if it's his son as Superman, because it doesn't really say in from what I read on there.
No, although it looks Clarky to me,
Yeah, it
like because
looks.
there seems to be, but then some of them are on alternative covers. But it looks like there's a. It looks like it's Clark and Lois rather than Jonathan.
Yeah. But yeah, it's one of those of I know we keep saying we've got to read some
One of
Superman
these
at some point,
days, yeah,
and it just seemed like a sensible place
yeah. I
to
mean,
get our toes wet.
I'm down because you think it's part of this Dawn of DC initiative. I'm not saying it will jettison like lots of continuity, but it smacks to me even from reading a little screed here that it will be a good jumping on point. So not only a number one, but a good jumping on number one as well.
Yeah. So that's my DC picks.
Well, um, I said it
How much
earlier.
Lazarus is there?
Three, three, but there are three one shots for Lazarus. There's Lazarus Planet: The Next Evolution, Lazarus Planet: Dark Fate, and Lazarus Planet Omega. Now, Mark Waid writes Omega, which I think is probably going to be maybe the focal story point of whatever Lazarus Planet is going to be. And then the other two seem to have a lot of writers and a lot of artists. So it feels to me like they might be those issues where you might see bits of stories for a lot of the stuff that's going to come in Dawn of DC.
Yeah.
So I kind of put them on there for that because I thought, well, that might be quite interesting. You might get those little tasters to kind of go, what will I want to read in May, June, July? What of these new series that are going to grab me? But yeah, again, I'm dubious about jumping into events too often and things like that, but I quite fancy having a crack at this. So yeah, Lazarus Planet, Lazarus Planet, Lazarus Planet. Say it 3 times and it'll appear. The other one, and you mentioned it as a kind of, like all your things like Batman and Detective Comics are running, but I've actually put the first trade of Batman called Failsafe, which is Chip Zdarsky coming on as the writer. So the current run of Batman and the trade of his first story arc releases in Feb. So I
Yeah.
think I'll use that as my time to kind of go, now that's a trade, let's read that trade, see whether I like Zdarsky's Batman, see whether it will be a Scott Snyder, Tom King-esque run for me, and to see whether I want to come back for more. There's a few things that are kind of pre-existing that I've started to read, like Nightwing, but again, for more of a memory thing for me more than anything else, and I forgot that this was coming out. Poison Ivy. Now, at this point, it'll be issue number 9, but I was really interested in this Poison Ivy series when I saw it announced, and then somewhere along the line, I'd lost sight of it because I really liked the writer, and I remember the art looking stellar for it. So a reminder to me to jump back into Poison Ivy. There's a Swamp Thing, I believe, limited series. After I said limited series is nearly cold, but I love Swamp Thing. So the Ram V run at the moment has been fantastic. But the thing that jumped out to me is the writer for this is Jeff Lemire, and Jeff Lemire is one of my favourite writers in comic books. So you say to me, Swamp Thing, I say yes. You say Jeff Lemire, I say yes. And then the Solicit, when you add in that John Constantine's in the story, I say definitely. That's definitely going into the list. And something that we touched on a couple of weeks ago about a new series spinning off on this, but in February, the Sandman Universe Nightmare Country trade comes out. So collecting that James Tinian, the fourth first series of first part of the story. And I hope that by that time I'm far enough into Sandman that I'm probably mentally ready to start purchasing or reading stuff post the main Sandman story. And there's a couple more things. But you know, I said Lazarus Project, Lazarus Project, Lazarus Project. I will then say Tom King, Tom King, Tom King, um, because Human Target is reaching the end. And I've not read any yet because with the Tom King stuff, I do like to read it in its entirety.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to highlight Human Target by Tom King, Gotham City Year One by Tom King, and also Danger Street, which is going to be very similar in. I think it's a 12 issue run. That one, a great, straight, strange premise to that. So where um, he's done in DC, he's done like the Mister Miracle series. He's done a series that focuses mainly on Adam Strange, Human Target, being about Human Target. This touching characters that aren't necessarily the big ones. Well, this is based off of a initiative many years ago where I think it was called DC Comic number ones or something like that, where they did 12 number one issues. I think it's 12 or 13 of rando characters, some that were more famous than others, and kind of released them out there. Well, this is Tom King going, I really like that run. Let's put them all together in one singular story. And they are some quite weird and disparate madcap characters. So, yeah, Tom King, Tom King, Tom King.
So
This
now we will.
episode is sponsored by Tom King and the Lazarus Planet.
So now we will look at the best of the rest.
And you know what, we to be fair to you, and to let this is know, like a lot of the best of the rest I only share with you today, so I know you haven't had necessarily a ton of time to go through the best of the rest, but there was, when I was going through it, a lot more that I thought, oh, that might pique your interest, that might pique your interest necessarily than my own. So I am quite interested to hear what did jump out at you in the best of the rest.
So the first one that jumped out to me was Where Monsters Lie.
Yeah.
Um, the cover looked fucking awesome, and it's about monsters going out on killing sprees and how they have to try and hide that so they don't get caught. Yes, please. Um, there was a Bill and Ted's
I
one
thought that might jump out at
that
you.
I was like, oh, I don't know, because it's not actually about Bill and Ted.
It's about the princesses,
It's
isn't
about the
it? Yeah.
princesses.
Who doesn't
Um,
love the princesses?
so depending on what they're doing with that, I don't know. I think that's one of those. I think I might have to do a bit of research on that one before it comes out to get a little bit more.
Well,
Uh,
and not in like a mean way, but I know you do like your licensed stuff, don't you? Like
yes.
you do like, and I'm not so much. I don't, because often I find that licensed means we don't need to bother writing a story because people are going to buy it anyway. But I was a little bit intrigued by this myself because I just thought, oh, do you know what? It'd be nice, wouldn't it, to potentially to spin off into other stuff in the Blinters, because
Yeah.
we've got our Bill and Ted stories. Let's have some princesses stories.
Yes. I did see that there was a fuck ton of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff coming out. Not for me, but more, if the boy sees one that he likes,
Yeah,
I might sort of go, there you go, have some turtle stuff. Some of the covers are very good throwbacks to the 90s cartoons and stuff, and I'm like, yes, please.
yeah.
Also saw a shit ton of Star Trek stuff, which
Oh God, there
isn't for
was a
me.
shit ton of Star Trek stuff, wasn't
It
there? Yeah, I
isn't for
noticed that.
me, but if you're
Yeah.
into it,
Well,
crap till you
I
be.
did not realise that there was so many comics being released about Star Trek, and I guess by the same token, when you go for those Marvel solicits, there's about 3 billion Star Wars comics, so I guess it makes sense. But
Though,
yeah, it doesn't seem to get the fanfare that Star Wars comics
no,
do
though I
they?
did notice there are some Star Wars stuff that's coming out that isn't
Yeah, Dark Horse have
on
got some Star Wars
Marvel.
stuff, haven't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, which obviously I've not seen or heard of
I,
beforehand.
I feel like some of it is a continuation of the stuff that Dark Horse were publishing before Disney got the
Right.
license. So I think it's a relatively new deal to kind of say, yeah, you did some good stuff, we'll release it. So
Finish it off,
yeah,
maybe, or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it wasn't a great deal that jumped out at me on on the best of the rest. But then, as I said, I did literally have about an hour before recording.
Geez, I thought you would pretty much go through the whole of the Dynamite solicits and pick them all, because there was about a gazillion bad girl comics on there, and I thought, yeah, he's gonna go, yeah, I'm interested in this, I'm interested in that. So yeah, I'm actually quite surprised by how few you picked out from there. And funny enough, for me, the best of the rest, I only had one, and that wasn't necessarily as an offence to a lot of it, but there wasn't. There was lots of things from Boom Studios where a lot of their series are a chunk of the way down, and even the trades that they're releasing this month are like Volume 4 and things like that. So there's probably a lot of stuff I'll read from there, but not that jumped out at me. But it was Dark Horse, and it was Blue Book, and it's James Tynion the Fourth. You know me, I love a creator, and if I love a creator, I'll try and get all their stuff. But the thing that stood out to me is it's not fiction, but I guess it kind of is fiction. So tales of ordinary people encountering the strange and the impossible. And one of the artists on it is Michael Avon Omen, who did Powers, which I really loved. But um, he calls it his true weird stories. So I think they're going to be stories that have a basis in truth, maybe new urban myths and things like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, I just kind of went, yeah, do you know what? I'll be down for this. Something like a little bit different. So yeah, that was really the only one that jumped out for me for best of the rest. But it jumped out quite high. I thought that's a definite for me.
Yeah, see, it was a couple of there's as you said, there's a lot of stuff that's in episode 18, issue
Yeah.
18s or things like that. So obviously, as we know, sort of go nope, nope, nope. It was like if it's not a one or a trade of something, I was like I didn't really pay attention to it. I did notice the cover for episode issue 4 of Quick Stops though, was like
Yeah,
ooh,
there was another Kevin Smith one on there. There was a trade or a
missed that.
collected. Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was straight under Quick Stops on it. But yeah, I think we talk about kind of feeding this addiction that we have, and one of the things, as I say, was to try and revisit that concept of loving going through the previews, the solicits, to go, what do I want to read, and maybe getting more into the mindset of actually remembering to bloody buy this stuff when it comes out, or to buy the trades when it comes out, so I don't miss out on it. And yeah, I do think going forward, like picking up so those image ones where there's a few number ones, I would think that probably, like looking at then the March ones, I'd be very interested maybe in the number 2 or the number 3 or the number 4. But yes, when there's an ongoing series, I think it will be, if there's a change of creative team, or like maybe something that looks like a bit of a tentpole story moment, that's when you're probably going to jump into those, rather than jumping in at issue 101.
Yeah. Um, so that is us for this evening, but we'll be back next week.
Let us know in the comments if you've read, or what you're looking forward to in the February solicits. Anything that we've vibed on, or anything that you saw when you were going through it that you think we have been foolish to not have noticed.
Yes. Down there, comments, like, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the YouTubey shit. Next issue will be film film versus comic run of the aforementioned, as we mentioned it earlier, Suicide Squad.
The beautifully titled Suicide Squad versus Suicide Squad versus Suicide Squad. Everything's coming in threes on this episode. I think I need to go down the shop and get a lottery ticket that includes a number 3 in some way, shape, or form.
And
Yeah,
split the
it
winner.
felt like it was going to be an interesting thing for us to look at, because if you've watched any of our previous episodes where we talked about comic book movies, let's not bury the lead. Neither of us are a fan of one of those movies. I am only just getting around to watching one of those movies, and I'm a really big fan of the Suicide Squad original run. So it's going to be very interesting for me to see how that plays with you as an audience because you're coming to it for the first time, aren't you?
Yeah, the first time of reading it,
Yeah.
obviously I've seen both of the films. I'll be rewatching one of the two films in preparation. The
Both of
other
them.
one I don't need to see again
You
because
do. You do. You need to be fully prepared to go into the great character diagnosis that is the Joker.
fuck you.
Anyway, that's spoilers for next episode. But yes, coming soon. In fact, a week after you're watching this, Suicide Squad versus Suicide Squad versus Suicide Squad.
And until next time, goodbye. Said, do you like beer?
Yes.
Good. Do you like craft beer?
Yeah, I do actually.
Do you like fancy beers?
Yes.
Do you like discounted beer?
I like discount, and add discount to beer. That sounds like one of the best combinations you're ever going to get.
So, we have a discount code for 10 beer bottles for all your craft beer, pilsners, German lagers, ciders, and more. They do snacks as well.
Whoa!
Snacks!
I knew about the beer. I didn't know about the snacks.
Yes, there are snacks. So the code is Wrestling20, and with that, you get yourself 10% off your order. No minimum spend. There are some T's and C's which will be down there, you know, the legal bits.
Yeah. And on the site, I'm sure, as well.
Yep. And if you spend 45 quid, you get it for free delivery. You know, Christmas is coming. We all like a fancy beer.
Since COVID, none of us like to leave the house.
Exactly. So you can have your beer delivered to you. You don't have to go to the supermarket. You don't have to deal with the unwashed masses.
Yeah.
Get your beer straight to your house. Num num num. Drink,
If
drink,
you've
drink.
got a friendly postman, he might even open the cans and pour it in for you. You never know.
Exactly. So, go to 10beerbottles.co.uk, promo code Wrestling20, save yourself 10%.
Oh, and don't forget, Christmas is coming soon.
Oh, yes.
Get your
Beers
Christmas
for
beers
friends.
ordered. Yeah.
The perfect gift for anyone is beer. So, 10beerbottles.co.uk, promo code Wrestling20, no minimum spend, 10% off, get your drinks on.